Hey, assalamu alaikum, guys. Just want to let you know about a charity project I'm involved in with my MSA. All funds will be going to various projects under Islamic relief, helping orphans and needy children all over the world. You can help this cause by donating to our LaunchGood page at tinyurl.com/LIUCWLG 2020. You can also find the link in the description below. May Allah reward you and accept from us all.
If we raise 15K by this Sunday night, I will personally shave my head. And we are live, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, Aman, how are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am doing well. How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, we're doing amazing. So as you all know, my name is Shaquille. I'm the host for this podcast. Today we have the amazing Amal Kassir. Is that how you pronounce it? Kassir?
Kassir, yeah, you got
Kassir,
it.
gotcha. Amal Kassir, renowned worldwide spoken word poet. And beside me, we have our guest host for today, the sort of amazing Rashidul Islam.
Yeah, I can agree to that statement as well.
So I've known Amal for a few months now, I guess. I submitted a piece to a poetry competition she was doing. Alhamdulillah, I made it to like top whatever, and I had this interview with her, and it was really cool just getting to know you as kind of this older figure in like the poetry world, really getting to see how your brain works. And what's interesting was that was like an interview for me, but now like the tables are kind of reversed. So so now it's like I'm in this seat asking you the questions.
Well, it sounds good to me. And just so everybody knows, he did win third place out of 108 other people. So, mashallah.
So for those of the listeners that may not know who you are and exactly what you do, could you just give a brief intro into your backstory, where you grew up, and just a little bit about yourself?
Definitely. My name is Amal Kassir. My name means hope in Arabic. I am what's called an international spoken word poet, but more so I'm a storyteller and a speaker. I've, alhamdulillah, been able to travel all over the world, I think 13 countries, to share this poetry and the story of my family. My father's from Syria, and my mother converted to Islam when she was 15 years old. She's German descent. So I really come from like two unique immigration paths: the immigration story of my father, and then the addition of the war, and the introduction of these global conversations like the refugee crisis. And then you have my mother who immigrated to Islam. And I think that so much of my background comes from the intersection between these two cultures and these identities and this concept of travel. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, by the mountains, and I gained any public speaking skills that I do have from waitressing at my father's restaurant. I was in my mother's womb while she waitressed at my father's restaurant, so it's legit in the blood. And you want to become a good public speaker, be a waiter, where you like tell a profound story and then like drop 20 cups on a customer. So yeah, that's really where I come from. A little bit of immigration, a little bit of mountains.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're currently living in Texas, right?
I'm in Houston, Texas. Yeah.
How did that move go? Like, what was the reasoning behind moving to Texas from Colorado?
So I performed at ISNA, and it was here in Houston. So it was the first time. And that night, backstage was a volunteer who is now my husband. And I ended
wow, mashallah.
He like slipped backstage, gave me his Instagram, and you never know where you're gonna end up. The only thing that could take me away from the mountains, alhamdulillah, was my husband.
That's
he's from Pakistan, so my kid's gonna have way more poetry than me, that's for sure.
There's a lot of mixed blood going on into the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. You're completely right. Yeah, Pakistanis are known for their poetry. Or the poetry especially is just mind-blowing sometimes.
And it's so rich and alive. in America. I think Pakistani culture is kind of the dominant culture in my life right now. Not so much Arab, it's just
So,
I'm like
so
learning.
it's just biryani, like has the diet changed or what's going on?
The diet's definitely changed. But we've Arabized, you know, throw a little bit of za'atar up on that saag aloo, you know. I'm cooking methi now. I didn't even know methi was like, I didn't know it existed, and now I'm so yeah, subhanAllah, man. All kinds of new recipes and all kinds of new culture just slamming into each other, you know.
Right.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you said that your mother was originally German, correct? And
she's
your
German
father
descent in Iowa. So there's a huge old so I think she's a second or third generation American.
Gotcha.
And my father's a first.
And your father's straight from Syria, right? He was an immigrant that came here.
Yeah, in the early 80s, he was taken to the University of Nebraska.
Wow, mashallah.
Place to be when you imagine America. Yeah.
Gotcha. So how was that upbringing like? Because the way you said that your mother grew up in some, I forget the state name, but it was one of the middle states, right? That's kind of like, I guess you wouldn't assume that that's the most diverse area around, right? So how is that upbringing like for you, being like from someone that you know is pretty much Americanized, but then you have this other side of you where, you know, straight from Syria, Muslim, and completely cultural.
Yeah, the experience gives you so much empathy, to be honest. And my mother did not have an easy upbringing. So she wasn't just in the Midwest where the weather and the economy are harsh, but she was in an environment where she did not have the same structure that, you know, you'll see a lot in Muslim families, absent father figures. In these communities, lots of gambling, lots of alcoholism, lots of addictions in these environments. So being poor and rural in America and growing up without a father figure in the home, this was transformative to be able to understand kind of what the experience of the typical American is, you know, and this has given us the ability to talk. I mean, when we waiter, we literally talk about, you know, cherry pie with some pistachios on top. We can connect across the American culture, even though we were not raised American, right? I've got my Uncle Bruce and Uncle Jim, but then I have Ammo Khalid and Ammo Muhammad, right? So how do you speak to everyone at the family reunion? Some of the challenges that you do see with these mixed households tends to be, you know, obviously, like you said, my father is a cultural Syrian, and having these two versions of culture in one home, it was a huge learning curve. Baba's learning to become an American, Mama's learning to become a Muslim. How do you raise the kids? And so there was a lot of overlap. And I think that really we are responsible for creating a culture now as the children of converts. You know, you kind of have to figure out what is relevant in Islam. What is Islam in Syria does not look the same as Islam in the United States. The context is different. The emphasis is different. You know what I mean? They're not dealing with, we're dealing with much more liberal issues than they are. So our parents didn't even know how to address this. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, you just froze for a second, but it's all good now. So of course, I guess living as a Syrian American, maybe in the early 2000s was a bit different from how it is now. Was there like the same kind of, I guess, xenophobia or Islamophobia, if you want to call it that, against people from that region as it was when you were growing up?
My childhood was 9/11. In the academic literature, we are called the 9/11 generation because the psychology of the Muslim was completely shaped by this. So we were kind of at that initial, I was 6 years old when it happened. I was in first grade in a private Islamic school, right? And we had to be evacuated because our private Islamic school was they received 2 bomb threats on the morning of September 11th.
Oh.
And Colorado is not like Houston. It's not like New York. It's not like Los Angeles. Colorado was a small community compared to like back then compared to now. And we got rocks thrown through our restaurant window, FBI raiding our masajid, knocking down the bookshelves. We kind of grew up when we were just entering this era of surveillance, when Bush was president and all of this. And it's different now because we are in it. Linda Sarsour is on Fox News every other night, basically, right? They've been flashing her picture up. People know who Muslims are. You tell our people back in 2001 after September 11th that one day Donald Trump's going to be president and you guys are going to be praying in an airport. They would have thought you were joking. They're like praying in the airport, and then thousands of Muslims showed up. So progressively, as the experience of being an American Muslim is changing, number one, our conversations are changing. Back then, we were talking about we were talking about how to be Muslim in America. Now we're talking about how to deal with homosexuality and how to deal with this and how to deal with that. You know what I mean? Our social issues have changed. And I think our establishment of a community is so much stronger now. And these are the major differences.
Yeah, no, definitely. And coming from like growing up in New York, I don't know if I would be considered like in the 9/11 generation or however it's called, because of course I'm a few years younger than you, but also just like I didn't really face that until later on in my life. Like when I was in elementary school, then again, I guess the demographic of where I grew up, that could have had a part to play in it, but it wasn't really brought up like at all, like whatsoever. But that might just be because of how diverse New York is. And then I remember like when I got into middle school, it was like a predominantly Caucasian middle school, and everyone's favorite joke was like, Allahu Akbar, right? Like, because they would just see the memes of like the plane hitting the tower, which is not funny whatsoever. But then like when the explosion happened, it's just like Allahu Akbar, and it's just like this huge thing. And I just was baffled that this was like a joke. This was like a meme to them. So it was like definitely weird. Like, because when I was younger, I guess closer to the tragedy of it, I didn't really experience much of it, and it was definitely it was weird. Like, because as I got older, that's when I finally like understood more of the reality of like how much 9/11 really affected the landscape of Muslim culture in America.
And it is what determines the landscape now. It is why Trump was able to even propose the idea of banning people from only Muslim. 9/11, the Patriot Act that Bush created, these things paved the way. And it's crazy because there's so much happening now that I feel like the youth of today, like the TikTokers and everything, they're getting so much information thrown at them that it's hard to know where we're coming from because of how much is in front of us,
No, definitely.
I'd say, like, how every country, like, you'll see like Muslim culture evolve in each country in a different way, right? And altogether, like they still identify as Muslims, right? So I feel like, would you say that this is like kind of the origin of like American Islam, or would you say it existed way before then? Or like, because it seems like it's forming into something, right? Like I can't really say what, but like, what are your thoughts on something like that?
So the connection really cut. Can you say your question again?
I'm hoping I remember what I just said. But so every country, right? They kind of have like every Muslim country, my bad. They all kind of have like a Islam, like it's like a flavor of Islam, but it's all like, inshallah, it's all upon deen and goodness, right? Now in America, right? Would you say like the American Islam is developing as a cultural like byproduct, or would you say that it's just like there's just so much information that's like we still don't know how to define ourselves? Like like for example, other parts of the world won't be eating halal burgers, but in New York every single halal spot, man, if they,
Yeah.
there has to be a halal burger. If there
Yeah.
isn't, then you don't even know if it's good, right? You won't even
Yeah.
try it out. So
Right.
I'd say that's our like would you say American Islam is developing as a codified, I wouldn't say codified, but like a form
Yeah.
instead of like just throwing out information everywhere, right?
That's an amazing question, and it's an incredible thing to reflect on, because one thing that's unique about America compared to Muslim countries is the fact that we have a disconnect of generations. We do not have, aside from the Black community, but think about it, coming to the United States and having to like even consider it the same Islam has already been a struggle. So I think in the United States, because there is this major gap influenced by American television and consumer culture that makes it so that the elders and the youth are disconnected, I think this gives us an Islam that is a unique phenomenon. And I also think this version of Islam is starting to hit other countries too. Islam is rooted very heavily in the transgenerational tradition. Ali radiallahu anhu was a young boy when he grew up with Rasulullah. Everybody was a variety of ages, but we're dealing in an era where like the youth are with the youth, the elders are with the elders. People are all building walls or accusing each other or protesting each other, and no one actually is sitting at the same table.
Yeah,
this is what I see in our Islam. That's why we have such a like liberal taste of it, where things are completely like, it's an Americanized Islam. It doesn't come from necessarily the roots.
Yeah, of course. And I've been listening to more of like your older spoken word pieces, definitely from like 2012, 2013. And I've noticed that it's a bit more intense than what I expected. Like you're definitely a bubbly kind of person just talking to you. But mashallah, when I was listening to this, just so much emotion, so much power in every single thing we're saying. It gave me goosebumps. It literally gave me chills. And so was that for you kind of an outlet to really express all of this kind of confusion about identity and confusion about what your place was in America, in the American landscape? And of course there was the political side to it as well, with beautiful Syria being bombed on a regular basis at that time.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. I think. Here, can you repeat your question for me?
Gotcha.
Summarize your question for me.
So was your spoken word poetry really just your way of releasing all this built up tension that you faced as like the post 9/11 generation, but also as a Syrian Muslim that was seeing your country being bombed by the country that you live in?
My mentality, so I began writing before the war in Syria, and I was actually writing about Palestine initially, right? So the idea of like speaking truth to power, I think was the inherent motivation. I want to say my hijab, sorry, as you were asking that question, I immediately thought of the hijab and who I am as a Muslim.
Yeah, go for
it. And I think I want to establish that first, because when we reflect, we have so many different hats of our identity. I'm a Syrian, I'm an American, I'm a poet, I'm a female. But the number one identity I possess in this country is my Islam. And it is because of my hijab. No matter what, this is the forefront, this is the flag, this is the representation. And my choice to wear hijab, it wasn't spiritually motivated so much as it was politically. The spirituality of it came later, but the purpose of it initially, I was 11 years old in a private Islamic school. So on Friday, we had to wear our hijabs because of Jumu'ah, right? But we stopped at the airport to drop my brother off, and I walked inside the airport with my hijab on. 9/11 had happened 5 years ago. I've lived in Syria. We even left the country and came back. And
subhanAllah.
I felt like representing Islam in a country where they'll call my white American mother, a terrorist. Representing Islam was so powerful and almost like it was defiant. Islam does not, we respect our wage workers. We respect the poor. We put these people at the forefront. So I think the poetry came from more so a pride in the identity, not so much confusion and trying to figure out who I was. I knew who I was, and it was a Muslim. I'm 25 now and super confused about who I am now, way more than when I was younger. I don't even one day in the next, but I think being a Muslim in America is a hat that like we get to wear with certainty, and to have that certainty, alhamdulillah, for some, we're struggling right now, but I think there's empowerment that this faith can give us. And as far as the poetry goes, to connect that into it, the spoken word was almost the tool that I used in order, one, to show non-Muslims that like, we will be Muslim. You know what I mean? We will not stop being Muslim for you. And not just that, but we will give you good performance and good art. Yeah. And we will show you our stories and you will enjoy them, and so it's I wanted to be an artist, not a poet. But naturally, this is, I think, my calling. And so until recently, I didn't really invest in the craft so much, but it was more speech giving and speaking to the oppressors and the tyrants and, the corporate world and the corrupt world.
Gotcha.
Poetry is crazy. The scene is changing, man. There's so many Muslims on the scene.
Yeah, it's definitely saturated, where I feel like it's a very easy art form to get into, and then it's super hard to master.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So how did you first get into actually doing slam poetry? Because you were definitely on the competitive scene for a while.
Yeah. I was actually on the competitive scene for a year, like one whole year.
Only a year?
Yeah, that was all. That was it. It was 1 year, 2012. I was writing. I've been writing ever since, and have been able to perform my poetry in a variety of places.
Gotcha.
Yeah, subhanAllah, because of the war in Syria, the year I did participate, the video happened to go viral. And it was one of the first like major pieces of poetry that came out. I did not expect to go viral. I did not know that poetry could lead here. But it's just kind of the way the internet works. And then my dad like emailed the video to a lot of people. Like my 300 people, my dad emailed that video to. How do you have 300
he had that many people on his email list?
I don't know who these people even were. He probably just took his shot.
That's amazing.
But I started
it's like those scam companies that somehow get your email.
Where you come from?
Like, how do they get it?
Man, my dad's like buying people's emails on it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But it just started. There was a poetry slam at my school. And before that, I had written a piece. But I didn't know what spoken word poetry was. It was just this speech called Leaders of the World that one day I wanted to read in front of the UN. So I memorized it. It's a terrible piece. It's definitely not worthy of the UN. But I would memorize it, and I had it memorized every single day. And then like 2 years later, a slam poetry thing came to my high school. And I lost the first year. And then the year after, I made it, I think I was third place. I made it on the team. And then we went to international competition. So people who want to get started have to compete on a team. That's really the best way to do it. That's where you grow. That's where you have coaches. I've had coaches throughout all of my time, a coach for the TED Talk, a coach for the slam poetry thing who taught us how to perform. No one's natural. This is a craft and we all have to learn it,
Speaking of slam, I was like, I don't know, when I just think of slam, I think of like very aggressive, right? Very like unapologetic, especially we on the car ride here, we're actually listening to the to the one on like how like the image of a woman, right? How they're expected in America to reveal themselves, and it's just like I had to turn down the GPS navigation. I was just like, I don't need it. Like I was just like, because it was just like that voice just gets in the middle of like the it's just aggression, the strength, right? And with aggression and strength, I was thinking about like as Muslims in, let's say, like in this political climate, a lot of people, they kind of pander. I don't like using that word, but a lot of Muslims will pander. They're like, oh, look, see, like these non-Muslims, they approve of us because we're such, we're people of the community and we do this and we do that. And it's, some things are borderline like as Muslims, should we be proud that we're doing such things? Like, why do we hide things such as, praying salah, right? We don't talk about that. We don't talk about like upholding tawheed, right? Like, so do you especially as a political activist, do you think we should be more like softer on like the rest of America, or should we be like yes, we pray, yes, we do this, yes, we do that, like, what I'm saying, like, because all we do is, a lot of Muslims tend to just go the political route, and they try to be like, oh, we're just like you, but like lakum dinukum waliya din, right? Like, the truth is, maybe we're not like everyone, right? That's what makes us choose Islam rather than someone else. So like, I don't know, what's your take on like the future of Islam in America when it comes to something like that, right? What should we do?
So we're in an interesting place because everyone wants to define Islam for themselves, and no one wants anyone to judge anyone or have any standards about how anything is ran at all. And it's ridiculous. Everyone wants everyone to be okay with everything. This is not Islam. It is not Islam. And look, I'm not going to act like I don't. We all are committing our sins. Mm-hmm. And okay, we commit our sins, but coming outward and publicly being like, no, this is not a sin. That's where I draw the line. That is where, as Muslims, we need to be very, very skeptical of trying to switch things around, because at the end of the day, this is a way of life. And when you choose to identify yourself with the term Muslim, you're choosing to subscribe to something bigger than you.
Yeah, right.
But it feels like everyone's trying to grab at it and take their own piece and put it in their pocket and wear it like an icon on their t-shirt and put it in their Instagram bio, right? It's everyone's trying to brand their own Islam. And I'm speaking strict, like may Allah make us as good as people see us. May Allah make us better than anything. And I don't want to speak from a spiritual standpoint. I want to speak from the standpoint of tradition and the importance of discipline and the preservation of a history. We're trying to change Islam in America right now, I think. And it's not we, it's influencers.
Yeah, right.
It's people with lots of followers on Instagram. Followers. Look at this word. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had followers. So-and-so with their @ symbol on Instagram. The language that we are even using is that of a religion.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? And we also, I think we fall into the trap that if someone is followed a lot, then they must be wrong too. Like wise teacher said, do not let the zeal of the followers cloud the goodness of the teacher.
Definitely.
Right? I think we have to separate from pop culture, and we need to somehow connect to tradition. And Islam is built in tradition. Shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Salah, 5 times, these designated times. Siyam, when you, like, it is very disciplinary, just like yoga, just like being a vegetarian or whatever.
America loves those.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't need to like make our stuff hippie. We don't need to make it adaptable or palatable. We ask Allah for forgiveness and we educate ourselves. The hierarchy of Islam exists on scholarship. It comes from knowledge. It does not come from race. It does not come from ethnicity. It does not come from gender. It comes from knowledge. And I think our sociological attempts at reinterpreting every single thing and changing the religion is very dangerous. So yeah.
So kind of going back to the poetry, and I'm only asking this because you asked me this before, and I just found it super interesting and very insightful into how a person views themselves. So you asked me, do you view yourself as a writer when we talked previously? And I kind of gave like a half-half answer. I wasn't really sure. But I'm sure it seems like you definitely see yourself as a writer. Like, mashallah, definitely. At what point did you find yourself with the conviction that I'm a writer now, I'm an artist, as you put it, this is something that I am, this is something that's a part of me?
It wasn't until I was 20. And at that point, I had been traveling and speaking and performing for 4 years. But I think when I was 20 years old, what happened, do I keep going? Sorry, you guys told me this before.
Let's keep going.
Yeah. When I was 20 years old, I reached this point in my life that I think every Muslim American and really every Muslim in the world possibly, where we reach and, you know, we kind of ask ourselves, like, what is the state of my faith? What is the state of my heart? What am I doing with my life? And when I hit 20, I was asking myself some really deep questions, and I did not know who I was. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. I was about to graduate college. I was about to take the LSAT, go to law school, this whole thing laid out. And I fell into writing as somebody who was seeking answers, not as someone trying to create anything. And I think that's the most important distinction. We are not creators. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creators. And we have the capacity to write and explore and discover things inside of our soul that if we do not write, we will not come across them. So I became a writer when I needed writing, when my mental health and my survival and what I was going to do next depended on it. And I think if you're not a writer, then, you know, you make dhikr. And if you're not making dhikr, then, you know, there's different versions of this in every art field. And yeah, I think we should find that which makes us reflect and that which connects us back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was it for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I know coming from my experience, I still don't know if I want to put myself as a label because I don't think I've deserved it yet, because I've just been so inconsistent with it. And you're right that every single time that I seemingly pick up the pen or, you know, open that Google Doc, it's like when I'm confused about who I am and like what exactly I'm trying to do, and I'm like trying to figure it out through writing, and really just reflect on like my role in the world and you know, my connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my connection with humanity in general. And it's really those times when I feel like a writer. I know in my soul that I'm a writer, that this is like how I want to express myself. And then like a week passes and then it just goes away.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. It's like with Islam, you know, Shahada is so easy. You just gotta say it. What's the next one? Salah, bro. You gotta stay on top of that 5 times a day.
Yeah.
It's like that with any discipline. When you declare yourself one, and now you must practice.
Right.
Now you must do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You wrote an excellent piece, so I'd say, you know, 5 minutes a day, like they say.
Well, inshallah, I can actually, you know, put that as practice. And you're completely right with, like, you can't just say something and then not act on it, right? You can't be Muslim and then not do anything that a Muslim would do, right? That doesn't make sense. What is the point of you putting on that label then? If nothing about you is going to change. What?
But we should always motivate ourselves to try.
Right, of course. Definitely, of course. We can only get better throughout. Now, I was trying to like put some cynical vibe to it.
I like Muslims no more.
I mean, unfortunately, some people are actually saying that that's also horrible.
It's some people.
Yeah, that's also horrible. We should not be doing that. And So as of course, like you said, when you turn 20, that's kind of like when you put on this self proclamation as I'm a writer now, and I'm assuming that that was also the point where you made the decision to make this your career field.
I think it was, so I'd actually been doing this since I was 16 years old.
Right.
Yeah, so at this point it was kind of more so like the decision, because look, as soon as coronavirus came, my career was like on pause. There's no traveling,
Right,
there's no
that was for everyone.
And I think like I knew that this isn't gonna last forever. You know, one day I want to settle down. One day I'm gonna have kids. The work is something else. But I think it was more so like, what am I gonna die for, and what is the legacy I'm gonna leave behind? You know, and poetry, it can be a legacy, but sustainability and community growth, I think, that's the key. And sustainability and habit building, I think that's really what rooted it. Our youth is one of the most valuable things we have ever been given.
Right.
Because one day we will not be young anymore. I ain't even kidding you, bro. I turned 25 and I got like knee problems the next day. I'm like limping like a grandma.
No, I
can feel like
that.
aches in
My
my
left
neck.
knee's been on fire.
Same. You just hear
I don't know, man. It's something about the knees. I don't get it. Why is that the first to go?
The moment you go to sujood, bro, you just see that.
It's
like, ah.
Oh man. And subhanAllah, it's like our health will deteriorate. And the one piece of advice that I give to youth is establish good habits while you're young.
Right.
Establish good habits while you're young. I am 25 right now, as I've mentioned, and I am trying to establish reading. I'm trying to establish writing and you know, Quran and things like this. I'm trying to establish these because our time is limited. Wallahi, my father all the time is like, I remember my youth as yesterday. And I wish I had started sooner, because when you are young, you have time and you can get so much more done. Right. So writing at 20 was how I became a writer, and disciplined writer and a practiced writer. But I urge you guys, by 20, man, know who you want to be. Youth doesn't.
We're both 20.
You're turning 20. He's turning 21 next week.
Oh, it's too late, man. It's just downhill from here. Just do your best.
I'll mentally turn 18 again.
Yeah.
Do it.
No, I turned 20 last month, and I just felt so old. Like,
time's running out, man.
There's no teen at the end of that age now. It's like
2 decades.
It's 2 decades. That's crazy.
Awful.
Dude, I mean, they went from a Galaxy Note 10 to a Galaxy Note 20. Just like, I was like, what happened to the other 10 here? This is how fast time is going, brother.
Right.
It's just technology changing and fighting and wars. There's a new war every day. What do we keep up with? We keep up with our habits. Right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us ownership over our bodies, you know, and that's profound, because there's nothing we can fix right now.
Right. You
can pray 5 times a day, you can socially distance, you can do whatever you can, but I definitely urge us to reflect on our time as a culture and a community. Because you can post 1,000 activists Instagram stories, but that doesn't make a difference in the world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's so you said that community building and building that stability is really what you want to do with your life, and leaving a legacy, and all these things that, you know, mashallah, will carry on after you depart, right? That's something that I feel like we should all kind of take on. Like, whatever we do, I'm sure there's a way to make it everlasting, where after we die, that's going to be something that's, you know, sadaqah jariyah, right? Something that's continuously giving us good deeds even after we die.
Right.
And I know that this is like a little tidbit on like the bios that I was reading up online. You actually created your own major surrounding this whole community building thing, right? And could you just speak a little bit on that, and like what influenced you to take up that as like a direction you wanted to go in?
Yeah. So my major, I named it. It's called Community Programming and Social Psychology. And what influenced me was a class called Family Life Education Classroom Programming, where very, very simply, you are able to create goals and objectives and design easy curriculums. So amazing. I made a life curriculum for myself just this last week because I need to figure out what I'm doing next. So this course, this one class I took, made me realize that I just gained all the skills to design my own major. And so I drafted up something, goals, objectives. I knew I wanted to work with refugees. I knew that I wanted some sociology, but I didn't really care about, some of the like weird classes that I don't really need to know about some of those gender study stuff. It's not going to serve me and the population I want to work with. People of war, Muslims, impoverished people, so on and so forth. And alhamdulillah, honestly, I did not waste one class in college. Everything I learned served me. And you have to have a clear vision for something like this. All I knew was that their psychology major, their writing majors, I was not going to get a whole pie. I was going to get like some random skills that some white guy probably drafted up this whole curriculum. He doesn't know Muslims, he doesn't know us, he doesn't know that changing the world is a part of our fitra, it's a part of our way of life. So if you ever want to see a copy of it, I'll send it to you. And I really urge.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because like you get it. I got it. Technically, I would have been a psychology major.
Right.
What do you do with a psychology major if you don't want to be a psychologist?
Right.
Just spout Freudian things.
Yeah, I mean, psychology is definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah.
It's
And
like fun facts.
Exactly. And it's good for self-awareness and stuff, but if you can contextualize this and help communities, and you don't really need a degree to do it either, honestly. The skills are very, very simple, but it gives you researchability and just the ability to draft templates and different things like that, So I've helped design like youth empowerment writing groups for refugees. We helped a business, a victim of gentrification, kind of climb out of that. We've helped design websites and stuff like that. Yeah, it's super beneficial. So if you want to copy, let me know.
It's both locally, nationally, and internationally.
It's all about the opportunities you end up trying to reach. But yeah, Gotcha. It has the capacity to apply anywhere. And for anybody who's interested in this way of life, it's just called programming and not computer programming. That's different.
That's what I do.
That's his major.
It's actually awful.
Exactly. None of that, the HTML, I don't know, JavaScript. But
yeah, I'm learning it too. 4 years in. College is a scam.
It might hook you up, that's where the money's at. I think curriculum design was what I ultimately wanted to do. And I'll have to get a master's or a PhD in that. Inshallah, one of these days.
Inshallah.
Go back to school. But
Gotcha.
So most universities offer individually structured majors.
Gotcha. You mentioned that you created something called a life curriculum. What exactly is that? And like, what exactly is part of it? Because I probably need a life curriculum. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right though? Well, I've been thinking, so I do not have a 9-to-5 job. I am a poet, and what my job used to be, what would pay my bills, was traveling and speaking at places. But now, because of coronavirus, these things have changed. And now I have more time, and basically I'm trying to figure out what do I do with this time, because I don't have a boss. I mean, I have a husband. I'm about to go rage.
The association is very scary.
My boss, but like,
he probably feels the opposite way.
He's gonna love that. But I don't have a boss. I don't have anyone telling me what to do. I don't have a school schedule or a curriculum. Sometimes I'm like, and I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So this life curriculum, it's quarterly. Every quarter, I'll decide these are the projects I want to work on. These are the skills I want to master, and these are the things I want to learn about. And I have like books. I'll read section 1 the first week, section 2. I like go down to assignments and due dates and things like that. So right now I'm working on my writing portfolio and trying to get into some like freelance work. So
that's really cool, mashallah. And this is basically for the next like few years, or is
3
it like
months.
3 months?
There's
Gotcha.
long-term vision and then short-term vision.
Gotcha.
I write down my goals here. I have a little notebook, but I'll write down my top 10 goals every day. And 10 goals is a lot sometimes. We're like, I don't know what to put on here. Just paint a nice picture or something. But I write 10 goals every day so that I know what I actually want to do. So yeah, and then that influenced how I designed the 3 months. And I think clarity is important, and plans obviously never work out.
Yeah.
But knowing what your motivations are and kind of what your North Star is, at least you'll learn what you need to learn. And knowledge is the biggest part of the curriculum. We as Muslims, we as Americans, we as minorities, we have to stay informed, or else we're disconnected completely from relevant issues affecting our ummah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think with us all being in our 20s, I guess, right? You can all relate to what am I doing? Like it's like a purgatory of just like, you just live day by day, right? And you feel bad about not having this plan, and like how far does someone plan ahead, right? I still wouldn't know the answer. I tell myself like, yeah, I'm gonna be a software engineer. I've not gotten an internship yet. Like, I'm still looking. Inshallah, it works out.
Get it, yeah.
And then after that, full time, inshallah, once again, right? Right. So like, how far should someone look ahead, right? Especially like, when you decide to be a writer, right? Like, when you look ahead, you didn't expect to be like not being able to travel at this point in time, right? So, do you make things like was it tentative, right? Yeah. Do you make your schedules like, or like what you want, your goals, do you want it to be tentative, or do you like I have to do this by this time, right? Like, how do you go about that when you have a curriculum? Like, where's the balance?
That's a great question. So as far as how far ahead, think of your biggest goal. So I'm going to use my little brother as an example here. My little brother Usama wants to get into med school. He needs internships, mashallah, may Allah accept his work and effort. And so he needs to take the MCAT, but he needs to study for it first. He needs to sign up for internships. He needs to make his resume with that. He needs to write cover letters, and he needs to apply. So of these, the biggest task on his list is going to be the MCAT, because he can't do anything without that.
Yeah.
So his MCAT, let's say it's going to be in 1 year from now. So now you have 12 months. The first 3 months, you can get an internship. You can start studying maybe 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week, even for the MCAT. Second month, you're going to do 3 hours a week for your studying MCAT. You are going to start a second internship and have your resume finished. Your third section, study for the MCAT 8 hours a day and do nothing else. And then your fourth one is take the MCAT, start your med school application or something, right? So you want to look at what your most important goal is. If your most important goal is graduating, then you have 3 years or 4 years or whatever. My specific curriculum right now is 3 months. I have a goal to start a business, a publishing company, inshallah. I need to make connections first. I need to have a portfolio. I need to learn the business. I need to book first. So it's, you kind of take what your major goal is and then build backwards from that, right? I will teach a class on this. I think that would be so much fun. I hope this is making sense.
That'd be amazing.
Take a big goal and then break it down. Backwards.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like I think of it as like, I remember the other day I was just reflecting on like where I see myself in the next few years, and there's definitely I know the big stuff that I need to take in order to fulfill certain goals of mine, but then like all the little goals I'm still kind of like scatterbrained about, and then I kind of just realized like, what do I do after 30? Like, because I just realized like all my plans kind of end at 30. Like what happens after then?
You get married, and then trust me, she'll make the plans for you. That's kind of how the reality is. But subhanAllah, I mean, dude, at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the lives of people who are 20 years old. And plans are not accurate, but directions are good. We don't need a plan, we need a direction. We need to know how to get there. We all know that California is west. So how do we get west? How do we get on that highway that's going to take us in that direction? I don't make dua to ask Allah to help you, to give you clarity. There's a dua that I have on the back of my binder that's, oh Allah, I take refuge in you from anxiety and sorrow, weakness and miserliness, cowardice, the burden of debts, and from being overpowered by men. And I think American society has built us to, I don't want to call us lazy, but we are a tired culture. We're an exhausted culture. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us resources and du'as to try to work on that.
Definitely.
Yeah, you'll fail. And exercise and eat well. That's seriously like such an important key. It's,
Of course.
I tell my brother, are you eating your cucumbers every day? Like, eat your cucumbers and Allah will make everything fall in place.
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
So, of course, I don't want to take too much of your time further, but just one last bit I definitely do want to ask about, because it's something that I was kind of involved in high school, but you've had a fair amount of TED Talks under your belt, mashallah. I believe 3 or 4, right? Wasn't there a third one? There was 2? Okay.
I have done other types of TED Talks.
Okay, gotcha. So those 2 racked up quite a bunch of views. I remember the one about the Muslim on an airplane. That one got about 4.5 million last time I checked, and then the other one got definitely over 100,000. And I say that I was kind of involved in it, but it was like on a much more miniature scale, because I was kind of like one of the organizers for the TED event at our high school. And we got a few speakers that kind of like came out of state, and then one of our biggest speakers was Brandon Steiner. He actually wrote this book. It's a pretty funny title. You Gotta Have Balls by Brandon Steiner. He owns Yankee Stadium, and yeah, it was just really cool getting to like get all these speakers on board for this one huge event where a bunch of people come, they listen to all these people that have insight into things. And I kind of want to ask you about like the other side of that whole equation. Like, how was it being a speaker in front of like arguably one of the biggest speaking platforms in the entire world?
Meeting other speakers as well.
And meeting them as well.
Yeah, so the way I got the TED Talk, first things first, is I was not invited. I saw an advertisement for auditions and I applied like everyone else.
It was just like like online, or was it like?
Yeah, it was online on Facebook.
Okay.
So TEDx Colorado or TEDx Denver is one of the biggest TED Talks platforms. So was just, I happened to be in the city where that was the case. So I applied, and it was amazing because they provided us with a speaker coach who was very, very like clarifying. She actually, if you look behind me, my whole wall is covered in sticky notes. I'll show you. But they taught me.
That's a lot of sticky notes.
All the way. That's a speech over there. And that's kind of what they taught me, how to organize my speeches. So, alhamdulillah, I have the voice skills. When I was like a little girl, I was like performance. I played in plays and stuff like that. So the performance was there. But they taught us the speech writing, right? And extracted the idea from us. And, but it was such a beautiful experience. And I think always apply if you have something to say. And I was the only Muslim on stage, not to mention Muslim woman. And that means something, man. It means, especially when there's like
3,000 as well. So,
exactly. And they put me last. I was the last performer of the night. And that's a make it or break it. How it ends is how it went, I was so scared. I was so scared, not of being judged, not of like messing up my speech. I was scared that the message of Islam was going to be lost, that people were going to think this is some whining Muslim girl who's like, feel sorry for us. And I think it's so important what we say nowadays as Muslims. Everything is captured, right? So when I went on stage, there's the dua that Musa alayhi salam says before he goes to speak to Fir'aun. And Musa has a speech impediment. He was about to face the most powerful oppressor of all time. And he said, رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِّسَانِي يَفْقَهُوا قَوْلِي. And so I said this, and I thought, if Musa alayhi salam can speak to the Pharaoh, then I can speak to 3,000 white people. It'll be okay. I think it'll be okay.
We noticed that.
Yeah.
We noticed that.
We were also watching it. We were watching that video together, and as it pans to the audience, we're like, "Oh, that's a lot of
white women." It's just like
a lot of white women.
I'm like, you know what? It's good. They like they have like solidarity on the female basis at least, right? And like they can understand that struggle.
Yeah.
Through you.
SubhanAllah, man. Allah is the master of our voices.
Right.
It could have gone any way. It could have people could have not laughed at the jokes. People could have the slides could have messed up, like in the second TED talk that happened. But it's crazy when you feel like Allah is with you,
Definitely.
Yeah. So that was the TED talk. That was actually the year that I had I didn't know what to do with my life next after the TED talk. That's when I became a writer right afterwards, because subhanAllah, life just gets crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that dua, I try to say it before every single time I even remotely have anything public speaking with. I literally say it before class presentations, because I'm literally nervous to speak in front of 20 people, whether it be 100 people, 1,000 people. It's all the same to me. And that's why it definitely once you said it sort of embodies you, because after that point it's not what you say anymore. It's Allah is the master of your voice, right?
Yeah.
Whether it touches the hearts of the people, it's not up to you anymore. It's up to Allah.
Right.
May Allah guide us and make us good and deliver the message of Islam in a positive, powerful light.
I mean, and with that, I think we should wrap it up here. This is an amazing podcast, mashallah. Jazakallah khair, Amal, for being on. This is a blast. This is
awesome.
amazing. This is a great episode, in my opinion.
He loves poetry, and you know that as well. So it's it all just comes together for him.
This is amazing. And I hope the viewers as well enjoyed today's episode. Amal, if you want to shout out anything that you're working on, feel free.
I am working on a book called Scud Missile Blues.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm letting people know kind of what that process looks like and how it's going. I have a writing workshop on Instagram on Wednesdays, and I'll give writing tips, and we'll talk about editing styles, all kinds of stuff like that, and it's free.
Right. The 1 hour.
And it's how we community. Yeah. Also for you two, if you need any, if you want to check out the curriculum, see how it looks, just let me know. I'll send it over.
Definitely.
Yeah, of course.
I'll definitely check it out.
Send that over, please.
Yeah, mashallah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her Instagram is at Amal the Poet, right?
That's me. Amal the Poet.
Awesome.
Jazakallah khair, guys. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.